What can you tell us about Gabor and the Hertelendy history of winemaking that you remember?
Gabor was among the six siblings from the Hertelendy family. He was the one that was really very much a country boy. He greatly preferred the environment of being out in the countryside, whereas most of the others that I knew well were city people. So he was born shortly before 1900, and he was maybe the second oldest son, I'm not sure of that. But he bought a property, or leased a property, which is right on the big lake in Hungary called Balaton, and it's on the north slope. And even better, it was halfway up a extinct volcano. And the extinct volcano had a lot of basalt rock, which apparently enhanced the flavor of the white wines coming out of the property. So he bought this property and included a villa which was maybe 150 years old, and it had belonged to a famous Hungarian poet named Kisfaludy. And Gabor was there with his English-born wife, Claire, and his daughter, Julia. So he worked his vineyards there regularly. He did the harvest. He did a lot of the manual labor, probably hired one or two people for harvest to help out. And it was exclusively white wine. The two kinds of white wine that I recall that he made, one was called Surke Barat, and the other one was called Cake Nelu. Cake meaning blue. Both of these were white wines. And these are pretty well-known wines in Hungary. Never made any reds. So the only problem with basalt rock, and the roadways were all done in stones and basalt, is that they're very hard in your shoes. So he was having to buy new shoes all the time, trudging up and down the mountain. But anyway, he made this product for years. He probably started in the 1920s, and I knew him almost 50 years later. I think the first time I went was 1965. And at that time, it was just him and his wife living there, and their dog, Kormos, which meant sooty in Hungarian. And the dog was black as pitch, had very long hair. You couldn't tell which was the front and which was the back because the hair came over his eyes. But it's a very typical Hungarian country dog. Maybe even a sheep herding dog, I'm not sure. So they had a nice situation there until the communists take over in 1948 or thereabouts, at which point the government expropriated the villa in which they'd been living, and they went to the caretaker's cottage, which was quite damp, and I'm surprised that they never caught pneumonia. But they survived there, and there's a stream running directly underneath it, and a lot of running water, of course. And so they were, it was very close to the property. And I can tell you my high point of all the times I spent there with Gabor. We called him Gabor Bachi, which means basically Uncle Gabor. And we were visiting, and he would go down into the cellar of the villa. And the cellar would open up these doors where if you stuck your head halfway out, you looked over this incredible lake below you and sailboats out in the lake and a beautiful panorama because it was on a fairly steep slope. So we were down there sipping wine straight out of the barrel. He got a siphon and he would take out some wine from the barrel and fill our glasses, and then we might have 2 or 3 glasses. But the aroma of the wines was very strong down there in the cellar, and it was a unique experience. These wines at that time, I'm not sure were even exported. Certainly in the communist era, there was very little trade going back and forth. Now, the Circuit Bar of the Keknelu is still in production today. Those vineyards are still going strong. And I guess you could say it was for him a wonderful place to live. His English-born wife was very happy with that environment. Both of them were bilingual, so I could speak, trilingual, I guess. I could speak German, Hungarian, and English with them. My Hungarian was a bit weaker. But the wine production there was very satisfying. And I don't know if it got enough sunshine to be really, well-rounded, somewhat sweet wine. It was always on a tart side, but that seems to be the preference in America today. People go after Chardonnay, which is, I find, on the tart side. In Germany, it goes in the opposite direction. People like things a little sweet. So that's the main story with Gabor. He was there until tried to escape once. And he and his wife went by bicycle to the Hungarian-Austrian border and wanted to escape. This was by around sunset. But they did not succeed. They heard a lot of guards' dogs barking, and it sounded pretty vicious, so they turned around and came back home again. So they stayed there until about early 1970s, or thereabouts, and then about the mid-1970s, they went to basically another house, which they had as a retirement home for his last 5 years or so. And Claire, being English, she could travel to England whenever she wanted to. There was no impediment for that. Gabor stayed in the country because he did not have that dual citizenship.
So wasn't his wine combined with everyone else's wine in the
Yes, it went into a cooperative, so nothing was sold under his own name.
Uh-huh.
And it was probably sold as Balachoin Vineyards or something similar. Balachoin being the name of the village.
Did the Kishvaludi originally plant those vineyards?
Well, I suspect that the vineyards were going at that time already. He was a 19th century poet, and he was there with his girlfriend. I think they eventually moved in together and they got married. And it was a good story up till then. But after they got married, apparently they were in no end of tiffs. And so that part of the story was not so happy. But anyway, she was there and she became his wife.
What are your memories around wine with our family? Do you remember like dinner parties with wine flowing and family uniting?
Well, we certainly drank the white wines at dinner every night when we were in Balachoin. I'm sure my parents brought it back to Budapest, so they had the Hertelendy wines at their dinner table. And if they wanted red wines, they had to look elsewhere, of course. But this was considered some of the choice Hungarian white wine and used by the family on a regular basis. The parents, of course, drank wine and beer at meals. And in Austria, we got very good beers, which were from, I think, Czech Republic. And in Budapest, they drank a lot of the white wines, some of which were from my uncle's place down in Balachoin. And it was, freely transshipped. And it was part of our heritage. And the only part that I got to drink was the parents would deliberately leave this much in the bottom of the glass. And when they were finished with their meal, I could go chug-a-lug and have some of it, and it was very good. I wasn't a big wine drinker, certainly at the age of 7 or 6 or whatever it was, but it was a rare privilege to be able to do it.
And it's been in your blood ever since.
I think so. I think so.
Oh, that's fantastic. So Gabor, he tried to escape. Did a lot of other family members try to escape Hungary during the revolution in 1956?
It might have been during the 56 revolution when he tried to escape. No, that's unlikely. He must have escaped another time when everything was under control because there were border guards, Hungarian border guards, that were very thick on the Viennese border. And of course, there was a mine strip between the two countries, so you could get blown up. And during the 56th Revolution, I know people hid in haystacks near the border by day, and at night they'd sneak out and continue across. But the rest of the time, you did not have this privilege, and the guards had these German Shepherd dogs, so it was very hazardous.
Yeah. Did you ever hear other stories of winemaking in your family, or was it just Gabor that you knew about?
I don't think there were any other winemakers in our family, but it was, to me, the highlight was not drinking wine. To me, the highlight was to be in his cellar in Badachoin, in this village, being surrounded by these casks of white wine. The aroma was enough to intoxicate you, and we'd be down there sipping, and he'd be just using a siphon, drawing the wine out directly out of the barrel, and passing them along to our little cups. And between the taste and the aroma, it was a unique experience.